Right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee of the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority. Can I remind members, please, to use the microphone when speaking and to ensure that you do not have your laptop between, or any other object indeed, between yourself and the microphone, otherwise it inhibits the microphone from picking up what you are saying, and we would all like to hear what you are saying. So we're going to start then with item 1, which is apologies for absence.
We have apologies from Councillor Rippeth, substituted by Councillor Fane. So, apologies from Councillor Goldsack, Councillor Coles and Councillor Dew.
Thank you very much. So we are quorate. Councillor Miscandlin.
Could you notify people to either turn their phones to silent or off, because it does affect the microphone system.
Okay, thank you. Microphones to silent or vibrate, or indeed off, if you can bear to be parted. Thank you. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest to be declared in anything on this agenda today? Councillor Bagent. Member of Cambridge Recycling. Cycling, not recycling, recycling. Cambridge Cycling Campaign. Thank you very much, Councillor Bagent, and Councillor Davey also, and goodness, very popular group, and Councillor van der Weyer. Thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting then. Are people content with the accuracy of those minutes? I don't see any objection. Thank you very much indeed. Then item 4 is public questions, of which we have none. So we're on to item 5, which is transport update. And I'm delighted that we have Mehmet Ahmet with us today, and also that the Mayor of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, Mayor Nick Johnson, on his first visit to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. So thank you very much indeed, both. Mehmet, if you would like to introduce anything in addition to the report that you've presented to us. I'm proposing to do 3 things here: to receive the report and have any update questions that members may have, and I have some, others may well, to also then cover the submitted in writing questions and written answers that have been submitted. Now, those are not yet published on the Combined Authorities website, but will be, both questions and answers, but they will be supplementary. So I don't intend the questions and answers to be read out, but those who ask the questions will be entitled to ask a supplementary question of you and of the Mayor. And then we as a committee will decide as a result of all that whether there is anything we wish to add to our work programme. So those are the 3 areas I want to cover in this. So Mehmet, and obviously if the Mayor wants to follow up with a comment after that, then he'll be allowed to do so. So over to you.
Hello, can everyone hear me? Yep, brilliant, excellent, thank you. So obviously I'm assuming welcome members. So we've got the report in front of us that's been published in terms of some of the I guess the main streams of work that we're involved with within transport at the moment. Obviously very busy period of time. We're gearing up obviously for the one of the biggest parts is around the local transport and connectivity plan, which is a major document for us in terms of our, I guess, our revised, our refresh strategy for delivering transport within our region. And there is a board paper going to our board this week, Wednesday, which essentially, I guess, explains that we're going to go out to soft launch next week in terms of some of the, I guess, the wider thinking that we've got around transport, and it's going to welcome, I guess, the public, yourselves, to get involved in actually trying and providing some responses to those. So that's one of the bigger parts that isn't necessarily explained in more detail here. There's some other aspects as well around some work that's going on with the A10 and A505, as well in terms of working with the county council, in terms of trying to look at how we can actually deliver those projects at the next stage. Because again, you know, very key parts of the network that we need to consider as well. So there's some work going on around that, which I can provide more detail if there are any specific questions. In terms of the bus reform work as well, we've got till the end of this week, as I understand it, to submit a quite substantial document around our bus reform work, which is going to be submitted to the DfT, the Department for Transport, and officers and the like are very busy pulling the final bits together, and that will be presented to CA boards on Wednesday as well in terms of some of the summary information involved with it. That's it so far. I'm sure there'll be more questions. So we're happy to take them, aren't we, Mayor Shropton?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Mayor, was there anything you wanted to say to us before we start with questions on the report?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me. Yeah, it's nice to be here. It's obviously appreciate Mehmet being here. I should also apologise for Roland Potter. I mean, I know this is a delayed to the previous questions that were in, on behalf of Roland. I know he would like to have been here, and he was obviously his apologies for not being able to make it a month ago when he wanted to have the answers. There were genuine reasons why he couldn't make it, and unfortunately, on this occasion, he's now on leave, and well deserved as well. In Mehmet, I feel I have a very, very capable support, and I'm looking forward to answering the questions. And again, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you very much. I'm going to abuse my chair's privilege by starting with the questions that I've got, but then I'm going to go to others. And it would be helpful if the questions could be in some way related to the paper, although that gives us quite a lot of scope. My first question is that there's a reference in 2.2 to the Active Travel Forum and Active Travel Czar. Do we have, and I don't mind which of you answers this or any other question, but do we have a timeline for that? When are we expecting that to happen, and what's the process for getting there?
Yeah. So we've done some initial work internally since the announcement was made around the Active Travel Czar, or Cycling Czar, as it first started off as. We've pulled together some research, obviously across other areas that have got Czars in place, obviously West Mids, obviously Manchester and Liverpool, and London specifically, just to look at the actual role itself and what the actual role entailed. So we pulled together a job description, a role profile in terms of what that individual could actually bring to our area. Obviously, understanding that it's not just us as part of this. You know, we've got our counterparts at county, Cambridgeshire County Council, Peterborough City Council, and our district council obviously working very hard, and obviously some of the local cycling groups as well. So haven't necessarily got a firm timescale yet, but a lot of that work has been done, and I guess it's just going through the internal processes in terms of what needs to be done next to bring that person in.
Right, so if we were to have, well, we're expecting to have the mayor back with us in March. If and when the mayor comes back in March, will we know by then who these people are?
Hope so.
I think if I was to come in and answer the question, I think as it initially started off as this sort of an idea, something that I'd sort of campaigned about, making sure that active travel was an important part for the combined authority going forward. I was generally pleasantly surprised how, in terms of local interest, people hooked onto the idea that, you know, a person essentially like the Chris Boardman and what he brought in terms of the combined authority of Manchester, you know, that sort of role seemed appropriate to be thinking about here in the local area. On exploring, as I say, it's a question of what do we don't want just a name here. We want something that's meaningful. And if you want to do it meaningful, does that actually mean setting up an actual role within the combined authority with cost implications? And obviously with that, I need to take that back to the board specifically before we make any final decisions. Or do you essentially go in, you just happen to live in the local area and you've been a big champion for the active travel, why don't you come on board and work with me? We want to make this meaningful, so we've got to get it right. I know that Mehmet and the team have been looking at, and there are very different job descriptions. I want it as soon as possible. It would be nice if it was all set up, or at least a process of, working out who the person's going to be in a open competition is available to you by March. That would be 10 months into my role, and I would, I think I've made it clear that active travel is an important part of the combined authorities drive going forward. And I do think there is a role for a champion. It's just, would that champion be better as an independent, or outside of the organisation, or indeed within the organisation? That's unclear at the moment.
My second question, there was apparently a meeting with the Minister on the 22nd of September about capability funding. How did that go?
I think that's the one I should answer. Well, generally, I thought it went very well, but then you probably have to ask all people who were in the meeting, things that I think it was positive in that they were very clear in, let's be clear, I've come into this role as mayor, but I haven't forgotten where I come from in terms of my medical background. And I made it very clear that the profile of enhancing public health as part of public policy through the transport strategic planning is important. And I think they like that. I think it puts me in a unique position as a sort of combined authority metro mayor. But I think they were clear that they wanted more clarity about, the drive in which where we're going forward. And we talked at length about my commitment to active travel lifestyles. And I think we have had further positive announcements from the department around further funding. We obviously are still waiting to hear about other applications that we put in, but I think it's generally seen as a positive direction of travel.
Thank you. When are the tranche 3 results of our funding application expected?
I mean, maybe Roland would have known that.
Well, yeah, Roland would have known that. In terms of,
Could we take that?
I'm happy to take that.
Watch that back and come back to us. Thank you.
For the record, I'm as interested with you as well. So.
Fourth of 5 questions. The key route networks. There's a government white paper, and we're told that the combined authorities' position is still to be decided. How is that position going to be decided? What are the emerging issues, and what impact is that likely to have on transport across Cambridgeshire and Peterborough?
Do you want to lead with that? We've talked about that. Do you want to just give an oversight? Again, Roland might be better placed, but we'll just do it best.
Yeah, so obviously the consultation was open for the key route network, which we received a response from our partners at Cambridgeshire County Council and Peterborough City Council in terms of their response to the government paper, and that was sent off. I guess we're taking stock on that response, and we're going to wait until the responses come back from all the mayoral authorities across England.
I mean, I've had limited discussions about this, but I'm aware of the process, and I think again, it's the case of wanting to get it right. It all stands by the role of being a mayor of a combined authority, and I think from my initial viewpoint, there was maybe some discrepancy about a direction of travel for both maybe Peterborough City and also Cambridge County, if that was in alignment with ourselves. So I think we need to be really clear what the different points want, what we can bring to the table. I don't think in the initial discussions it was so clear cut, and I'm happy to go back and try and get some further clarity about our response. But the fact that we haven't been able to put it together, I don't think should be seen necessarily as that we would want to make a comment. It's just I don't think we found an initial easy point of direction to go towards.
Thank you. Yes, if we could have something back on the process, the timescale and the implications, that would be really helpful. And my last question before I open it up to others is on the railways list. There is no reference whatsoever to Ely area capacity enhancement. And that really is quite a big issue. And I wondered why that was so curiously absent.
Well, I'm happy to answer that. I'm not sure why it was absent, because it's an absolute priority for me as a mayor. I think we really do need to kind of put a lot of priority in making sure that we work with the East Camden District local residents in that area to enhance the amount of traffic that we can put through that area. And, you know, it will be an important part of the improvements that we want to do in terms of, I'm going to use a phrase, of levelling up the region and be able to make people from the north of the area, Peterborough, the Fenland Market towns, connect them up with the south. So it's going to be very important. And then that's even before we consider sort of national implications. You know, I have had the benefit of sitting down and have really productive discussions with Network Rail. You know, we have a real challenge of what we do, not just within our own own area, but acknowledging that, you know, one of the great things that we could do by improving the environment is taking freight off roads and onto rail. And if we had more capacity going through that Ely Junction, that would be a real benefit. And that's even before we go down. You know, the government is currently making a lot of noise about creating free ports. You know, if we get free ports, there's a whole hope of chance that there's going to be a lot more freight wanting to come through. We take them off the A14, we want to put them on the railway. So all of that has to be done, being very, very clear that we should be minimising any disruption or indeed direct negative effects to the residents of that area, particularly Queen Adelaide and Prickwell.
Thank you very much. Members, other questions? I'm seeing Councillor van der Weyr first.
You might need to move your
it's an important thing to refresh the local transport plan. It's a major stage in policy creation. As someone sort of will be giving some comments, giving some views in this, I was wondering what the scope of the refresh might be, especially given the timescales. If you're sort of having this understanding from the board report, you're having a sort of soft consultation over the next month. And then having to do a formal consultation in January and February, so that's very tight, obviously, to do work. So what sort of scope will there be? And then the sort of second question on that is what engagement has there been and will be with in particular the constituent councils and the GCP, because obviously that's crucial.
I'm happy Mehmet to give a very clear answer on this. I'm sure now I'll add something to it.
Yeah. So I'll take the second one first in terms of the actual engagement side with district councils and leaders. Sorry. Okay. Is that better? Excellent. In terms of our engagement exercise, I think we started with Transport Infrastructure Committee members at the beginning of September, where we set out I guess our plan to start our engagements and our refresh of the local transport connectivity plan. We have then worked with the leaders of each constituent councils as well, and we've had separate meetings with them to, I guess, gauge their thoughts and their views on the actual LTCP and where we were, and I guess to look at some of the I guess the vision and the aims and objectives of the actual previous LTP, and how we want to try and refresh that as part of this, new term that we have, and obviously with our mayor and Free Seas and trying to bring those through the LTCP. I guess it's very important that it was right for us to do that, but then also there's other aspects around the environmental aspects with the Climate Commission report and also the pandemic as well, that also needs to be included, and we've engaged with our constituent councils and leaders on some of those aspects just to start gauging with them and to help us drive our soft launch, which starts hopefully next week, which we are on target for. Just going to CA board on Wednesdays part of that. In terms of not just GCP, county and Peterborough City Council, We actually have quite a good working relationship with them. We're part of a, I'd like to say, a working group, probably more than that now, because you know, we're working together to actually pull the document and some of the text together now within the refresh. So I think things have moved on, and I think it's quite key that everyone's on board for next week. So in terms of the soft launch scope, I guess it's and the engagement, that is very much just, I guess, taking views at the moment on the overall vision of the LTCP. Have we got it right? And that's going to be open for four or so weeks, in trying to build those views. And then come January time, there'll be a more extensive consultation with the public. But even during that period of the soft launch, we will be holding a workshop with leaders and members. We are to actually go through the LTCP and I guess have more of a meaningful engagement exercise with everyone in one room if we're allowed to. That's me.
I mean, I could come in here and I'm very clear. I had not realised the complexity of putting together a refresh, not a complete redo. And I'm very supportive of what's been achieved so far in terms of the team within the transport team within the Combined Authority and how they put their sort of elbow or their shoulder to the wheel. I am also very mindful that, as a mayor who came in and I was elected, and there was, within my election, there was recommendations as to the direction of travel I actually saw transport going, with particular regard to One Can. And particularly, there has been a frustration from my board, and I'm here representing the board. I recognise the board. There was something there, and it's no longer. I will be obviously reporting back to them the full details of how it came to be, and I'm not really within my realm to do to you today without speaking to the board. But I have shared the frustrations, not being able to get on with it and put together a fantastic new LTCP. But I am very much knowing that, having gone out there, and I thank Mehmet for referencing the particular challenges of coming out from where it was, the change in how we live our lives. COVID has changed the way we look at the world and what we want. And I think, the people of Cambridge and Peterborough deserve a refresh, and we've got to do it right. We have to kind of acknowledge how COVID has changed us. Likewise, I am absolutely delighted that the board, on a vote, agreed that we should accept 31 recommendations from the Independent Climate Commission. That has absolutely been a real bonus for me. Bear in mind, I didn't set in mind that Climate Commission. I acknowledge it was something that was done by the previous administration. But the conclusions are so important, bearing in mind we move towards COP26. And I want to see how a new transport policy, bearing in mind when you look at kind of climate as a whole, how we move around and how we travel is a huge net carbon contributor. So we've got to get it right. And I'm unashamed about working with my transport team, coming up with those innovative ideas. And if it's taken a little bit longer and it's frustrated us along the way, I do believe we've got the timelines right. And I do believe we've got some real belief here.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hay. Thank you, Chair. Couple of questions. First one is, it says within this report, expressions of interest were made for mini Hollands and GP prescribing pilots. Probably you could give us a bit more detail on what exactly that means.
Can I take the GP prescribing?
Yeah, you can go.
I'm not a general practitioner, but obviously up to 50% of the NHS and the work that GPs do invaluable through the whole COVID pandemic. But one of the things that I share with my primary care colleagues is an absolute desire to involve preventative medicine as opposed to kind of solving the problem. I see that as a particular strength where myself, as a medically qualified mayor, can bring to the whole process. I think it gives me a unique oversight and a desire to deliver those changes. I have worked with these things before, even with children, where you can use exercise referral schemes to enhance and deal with the problem, the absolute epidemic of obesity from childhood to adulthood, and how by making meaningful intervention, which you take, you cooperate and you bring the community with you, it can actually make huge cost savings. So I think on this thing, this is very much the kind of desire to bring public health as a golden thread in terms of policy making, not just within the combined authority. I would love to see to be a beacon. There is, to add to the kind of specifics about it, within the last few weeks, I have set up a whole process of working more closely with public health and trying to kind of ensure that we're working on the space, bearing in mind that health structures in terms of the ICSs and how we're moving away from clinical commissioning, we need to be thinking differently, the district councils, the county councils, combined authorities. And for me, this is a perfect example where we can show leadership in regard to that. I don't know if that answers your question, but I think we need to put money behind it.
So what exactly will they be prescribing then?
Well, healthy lifestyle. And now, what exactly is a healthy lifestyle? But that can be, focusing on food you eat and how much, activity you do. Because you don't need a medical qualification to tell you that. But what you put into your body and what you do with your body, you can change your lifestyle. And again, it's not necessarily that the primary care is the only person who can tell you that, because there's a lot of information out there in the wide world. But it is something that is a very good result. And bless them, if they've even got the time to do it at the moment, it's going to be one of the bigger challenges. But working with healthcare professionals, and that isn't just doctors, that isn't just nurses, that's working with pharmacists. We can make real change by re-looking at how we approach our own healthcare for ourselves by being preventative rather than reactive.
Right.
I'm passionate about that. What are you passionate about?
No, and
Mini Hollands.
I can do, and to add to GP prescribing aspects, I guess one of the mayor mentioned conversations with Chris Heaton-Harris earlier on in the month. And one of the things that came out from that conversation was us to pull together a proposal to make a more fuller, I guess, submission or proposal in terms of how we actually will encourage working with our public health partners to encourage community groups to get together to do cycling projects, cycling activities, walking activities, and to actually support the GP prescribing work. And it's quite a small proposal at this stage, but there is a chance for us to get additional funding to actually build that proposal up. And that should start, I think, March or April next year, if we're successful in terms of additional funding for us to then work with our GP practices, our pharmacists. And
I think it's important when you're in a role, a leadership role, you play to your strengths. And in regard to speaking to the minister, it would be foolish of me not to use the strength of that insight around public health, about delivering good quality preventative interventions. And that was another positive meeting.
Yeah, it was.
Now you've got to talk about Mini Hollands.
Mini Hollands is slightly different. It's quite an interesting thing, Mini Hollands. I guess I can only reference one of the ones that I know very well, that's in Walthamstow, in terms of how they actually changed the actual fabric of their streets, where it's a complete different mindset how you actually design a street. It's trying to minimise the amount of cars that actually use a certain road. And you have parklets, you have mobility type hubs, you slow the traffic down, you actually remove cars from the road completely. It was a joint, as part of the expression of interest, Mini Hollands and GP prescribing was part of the same submission. It was the one that we've been chosen to actually work quite closely to the GP prescribing. However, the Mini Holland side stuff is not something that's, I guess, gone remiss. We haven't missed that. I think it's just a complete different mindset in terms of how we work a lot closer with our highway authority colleagues in terms of, well, how do we need to find these streets? What do these streets need to look like? Do we need to think slightly different?
And it goes without saying all of that will be done by full consultation.
Yeah.
This is no idea of top down.
Yeah.
It's a great idea. We need to, for these to be successful, you need the communities to agree to it. You know, you need them to kind of really recognise that there are benefits in doing this. Go back to the public health, air quality. You know, this is something that we really know. You know, we've really got to focus on. And so there's an whole narrative there, not just beholden on the combined authority, but it's on the county council, Peterborough City Council, us as district councils, saying we have challenges. Air quality is a problem in Cambridge City. Only 2-3 weeks ago, we were being told that you'd be better if you stayed indoors. That is not the right place to be, and we've got to work together. But we've got to do it in an open, transparent, and meaningful way, where the people actually accept they have been properly consulted.
I have another question. Within this report, it mentions the bus service improvement plan, and I understand that has to be with the Department for Transport by the 29th of October. I was a bit disappointed not to have a fuller report on that. So I went on to the Combined Authority website and put in BSIP, nothing came up. I looked back at Transport Committee and I looked at this Wednesday's board meeting. There's a report on this Wednesday's board meeting, it's 4 pages long, that basically tells us very little. Whilst I was looking for BSIP, what did pop up was a report done by Bedfordshire Council for their overview and scrutiny on this very same thing. Their report was 48 pages long, gave a lot of information, and it's exactly the type of information that I, as an overview and scrutiny committee member, would have liked to have seen before us. What I would ask is you go away and look at that report and perhaps think about bringing something more detailed back to us so that we fully understand what the business service improvement plan involves, what we're hoping to get out of it, what the basis is for any assumptions made, etc.
I think it's a fair point, as I just said before, in terms of consultation. I mean, I want the combined authority to be as open and transparent, not just for the population, but for all members, constituent board members, and overview and scrutiny. So that goes without saying. In defence of the team and particularly the officers who have done so much, they have, how can I say it? They've been confronted by a significant change in circumstances in May, and very much I have absolutely, I've said it once, I've said it 3 times. It's all about buses, buses, buses. I think in order to prevent, to make sure that they hit the timetable, make sure that particular, as I had articulated in my campaign strategy, a real desire to take, I'm going to be careful using this right, take back control of the buses, and a deliberate kind of an expression that franchising modelling would be something that I'd like to see as akin to Transport for London, or indeed what's been pushed or attempted to be pushed in Greater Manchester. I think that has given extra challenge to the team with limited resources within the combined authority. I am reassured that the quality of the BSIP is of the very highest, and we've got the right people working on it, and I'm really hopeful that it will be transformative in terms of convincing central government about what we mean to deliver for the whole of Cambridge and Peterborough. But I think it may, as you have articulated, in all that hard work, the additional shared information to yourself has maybe not been as good, and you draw an analogy with Bedfordshire. For that, I will apologise on behalf of my officers, but I'd absolutely say, and we will work towards something that's more meaningful, but it's not big through any sort of desire to keep you out of the information. We'll take it back.
Thank you. Before was that your final question? And just before I move to Councillor Page, and just to reinforce the point, the board is being asked on Wednesday to approve the improvement plan without a copy of the information plan being provided to it. It's not a supporting paper or background paper. The plan isn't published. It's nowhere to be found.
This is the thing. The recommendations I've got written in front of me is that it's recommended in consultation with the chair, monitoring officer, CFO, to submit the authority's bus service improvement plan. So we've got to submit it, and then delegation of authority to the head of transport to progress at the earliest opportunity to the designated BSIP activities, and obviously approve a public engagement on the bus reform proposals following completion of the independent audit of the outline business case. So that's where we're at.
Yeah.
And I think that, as I understood it, that's the best we could. I mean, I don't know if there was an opportunity to get more information out to yourselves, but my thoughts were working hard on it to actually hit the submission date.
Right, but the submission date is Friday. The board is being asked to agree to submit something that they have not seen, we have not seen, and the public has not seen.
The board have seen. The
board members have seen it.
But it's not
But it's
public
not
information.
tonight,
So why is Central Bedfordshire's public information and ours not?
Don't know. I'm not obviously in charge of Central Bedfordshire. It's a good question. We could offer when you asked us to go back to if they feel that it was appropriate, fine. It wasn't something that came onto my radar. It was something that we could have done. But at the moment, I believe board members have all seen sight of it, and I can't remember the board members asking for it to then be made more public than that. But I don't know if that's.
Right, okay, I think we can't progress much more with that, but I think that's something that a number of us will be concerned about. Councillor Bagent.
Thank you, Mayor, thank you, Transport person.
Mehmet.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes, right.
No. I'd like to say that there are some criticisms here, but this is about getting up to speed. You've been operating without your own chief executive. We should be recognising that. We recognise also there's been a massive change in direction from the mayor's position, and I think to be congratulated and the staff to be congratulated in actually keeping the thing functioning in the first place, because it is somewhat different. I'd also like to thank you, and before I do this, I must declare an interest. I'm a board member of the Greater Cambridge Partnership, one of 3 voting members, so therefore what I'm going to be talking about is a bit something of my own personal circumstances, but I really do thank you for the cooperation. The Greater Cambridge Partnership, which I've served on for a long time, has been under tremendous stress from the conflict between the previous mayor and the situation today. It's different and people are working together, and I think this is magnificent. You spoke of cooperation with the Greater Cambridge Partnership, and I hope that you'll lean on us and we can lean on you at the same time. We need to work together because the people of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough will actually gain from that massively. I'd like to congratulate you on picking up the active travel baton and the buses. It's the way to go. We have got to get people getting involved in active travel. It is the way forward. I like the idea of the mini Holland. I'd like to volunteer my ward and my colleagues' ward in Cambridge for being a mini Holland. We have Mill Road, which is a bit of a celebration situation at the moment. We're hoping to get our bridge shut again. So let me offer to have some discussions with you when you're ready about making a mini Holland. I actually built the first parklet in the county, got permission to put it up and built it and put it on the road, on Mill Road during a closure in 2019. So I have personal experience of achieving these things. I'd like to move on to talk about the healthy lifestyle, the virtuous circle that comes out of people using active travel. The fact that they arrive on time, because they know if they're walking or cycling, they know exactly how long their journey is going to take within the minute. When they get to the place they're going, they can park, because you can park your push bike or your feet. At the same time, of course, you're not polluting anything and you're improving your public health of the nation, of the people, of everybody. People have got to get used to giving up their cars. People are not recognizing this as fast as they might, but this is the way. This is to have a mayor who's a public health champion and expert operating as he does, and to have all of the associated councils lined up behind active travel is a fantastic thing. But people have got to get used to giving up their cars. And there's an unintended consequence of this understanding, this wrench that people are going to have to make. And that unintended consequence is that people will begin to look more often at climate change. Because we've got lots of people who've just said, oh yeah, we're in favour of stopping climate change. But when you actually have to give up your car or put it to one side for a great deal of time to do that, it jars the memory, it becomes a change of culture, and we need to get that through.
Are you coming to a question, Councillor Baton?
No, it's not a question, it's a statement.
Right, this is an opportunity for people to ask questions of the Mayor and Mehmet. This isn't a space for presentations and speeches, however interesting they may be.
But I think the question is rhetorical within the words that I'm saying, really. But I'll
But we
stop
are-
there because I've actually reached the end of what I was going to say. Thank you.
Could I come
Thank you
back
very
on
much.
his rhetorical question?
A rhetorical answer to a rhetorical question.
Yeah, well, we're working in, it's all about the cooperation, and I just wanted to say thank you for those kind words, but just to reiterate, although the messaging from the combined authority, the values we share, is about 3 C's, and the cooperation comes when you show and you start with compassion. So if you care about your local neighbourhood, which I have no doubt you do, and everybody here from the different parts, from Peterborough City Council to the County Council of Fenland, it's the idea of caring for these people and trying to come up with transport solutions, innovation, then you get the cooperation, collaboration, and then you really do deliver for your community. I've said it many times, I'll not stop doing it, but before you get the cooperation, you start with, and you are brave about talking about compassion. Compassion is not a weakness, compassion is a strength. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. I'm now going to move on to the second part of what we're intending to do in this item, which is that we submitted a number of written questions in advance and got a number of written responses. And I'm going to allow each person who asked a question to ask a single supplementary question if they wish to. So the first half dozen questions were mine. And the first one was about, sorry, just to remind people, these aren't yet on the website, but we have asked for them to be made available on the website, questions and the answers. The first one was about bus services running on lockdown timetables, and we were assured that's not happening. That's not the experience on the ground. Is the experience on the ground due to the fact that services are still running to lockdown timetables, or is it down to other factors such as shortages of drivers or other factors? But the experience of residents on the ground is that many of these bus services are not yet running to pre-pandemic timetables.
Well, my primary response, and which I can come to, is apparently our bus services have almost entirely returned to pre-pandemic levels. Stagecoach East is operating 100% pre-COVID mileage, as are delaying First Excel, Whippet and supported services.
Yes, but that's, as I say, that's not the experience of the ground. If we provide you with evidence from the ground, will you take that into account in your
Do you want my
discussions with bus operators?
secondary response?
I'm sorry?
Do you want my secondary response? Is that your second question?
That was my supplementary
All right,
response,
sorry.
yes.
So I've got my secondary response. So as you've sort of alluded to, I actually believe our operators should be applauded for maintaining these services under huge pressure of drivers leaving, or as you say, these attractive HGV contracts. Some authorities across the country, including our near neighbours, possibly Bedfordshire, have had to cease complete services on some of the routes. Our services have remained, and only in some minor cases have the service intervals been slightly increased. I would welcome any additional information you want to share with us, and it would be helpful for the team going forward.
Thank you. That will be down to us to provide. Councillor Hay, I'm conscious of time, and it was one supplementary only per question, but you wanted to say something urgently.
Case in point, I travelled on the guided bus from Longstanton into Cambridge yesterday. When I got there, on the board that tells you about the times, told us from yesterday they were cutting the services for the A route, the B route, and I think it was the B5.
Okay. Well, that would be an updated response to what we obviously was given in time for this meeting. So any information shared with the combined authority, I have many. I'm quite proud of being an open office where people are regularly contacting me about struggles with their services, not just Stagecoach, it can be with other operators. And I like to believe that with the team within the combined authority, but also there's a lot of good conduit and cooperation going between the bus operators and ourselves. You know, we have taken on more responsibility for that. We want to take on more, and I think that narrative is there, but please provide as much information as possible.
Thank you. On to question 2 then, which is also mine, and we're not reading the questions and answers because we just don't have time for that, but it was about pressures on services and specific routes like Northstowe. The answer that we've been given suggests that the authority is not aware of pressures on capacity, but once again, I can assure you that there are residents in Northstowe, Oakington and so on who are waiting over an hour to get onto a train to get into work in the morning. So I'm hoping that the answer will be the same, that you'll be happy to receive any information from us.
I'm more than happy to write that. I'll read out my second. If you could provide data in relation to particular locations, I will gladly explore those locations and impacts with my officers to ensure cover is maintained where impacts are occurring. Currently, you know, that's it.
Yeah. Thank you
So
very
yes,
much.
is the answer to that.
My third question was about an electric vehicle strategy, and we're told that will be tied up with an alternative vehicles fuel strategy, which is progressing. I don't have a supplementary question on that, so I'm happy to move on to question 4, which is about ensuring public transport access to Alconbury Weald. I've got a supplementary question to the answer that's been given, which says an additional AM/PM service has been commissioned for Cambridgeshire County Council staff. I'm assuming that that is the existing once a day service to Alconbury Weald from Cambridge North in the morning and back again at night. I'm not aware of an additional or second service. Can you clarify that?
I will get clarification. I mean, I can actually say, I know on my commute into work to Ely, I've actually seen it setting off from the park and ride, so I know it's actually happening. In terms of an additional one, I will give you my promise that we will clarify those if you just want at the end of the day. But can I just sort of come back just to say that look, the issue about the IMET, and there is many issues about the IMET, caused a lot of frustration in regard to the business board. The fact that transport links to Alconbury Weald has often been put up as a big factor. It was one of the factors, and I absolutely recognise and support Councillor Ryan Fuller, because I think there has been an unnecessary focusing on poor transport between the Alconbury Weald and Huntingdon as the sort of as a negative. Actually, things have improved in regard to contact there, and we are certainly working hard for additional improvements, particularly in Huntingdonshire, not specifically at Alconbury, but we're looking at demand responsive transport. So I would hate the message to go about that the IMET failed just because of poor transport connectivity. There are improving things such as an improving cycleway. I think it's not helpful to keep focusing on that area, and I'm supportive of Councillor Fuller's point.
Thank you. Once again, remind people that I said only one supplementary, and that from the person who asked the question, but Councillor Corney has something urgent to impart to us.
Well, yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just welcome. Yeah, just what we're just talking about, and just sort of tying in with previous questions. I mean, we said on the previous section there was a section about rail. There's obviously a continued work, sort of chatter between yourselves and Network Rail. Here we are talking about Alconbury Weald. I can appreciate what you've just said completely. You've got the A141 coming up as well. There's lots of things going to happen there that will have an impact on Alconbury Weald. You sort of combine them all together. Is there any appetite there for, to call it a Huntingdon North station for Alconbury Weald, or is there anything on the horizon for that at all? Or just to go forward.
As a resident of Huntingdonshire who knows where Alconbury Weald is, and can recognise the description of the challenges around road traffic movement between St Ives through to Huntingdon, I would look at all opportunities to improve public transport links, and I am well aware of the proposal of a sort of additional rail station in that area. It would be something that I would certainly put into the mix, along with other proposals that have been put for South Cambridgeshire. Look, there is a success in delivering a station, hopefully by the end of the year in Soham. Let's just take that. That was a success of the combined authority previously, and I would acknowledge that. And that is for the benefit of one thing: is why don't we think about as a combined authority holder. And remember, it's not just the mayor. I have to work with a board who have to agree about what our priorities are. But I could, I would certainly would discount that as an option.
Thank you. My next question was about local transport note 120 and how we ensure that the disaster of the A10 A142 BP roundabout at Ely doesn't happen again. I'm grateful for the assurance in the answer that compliance with LTN 120 will be condition in all future transport funding agreements, and I look forward to seeing that implemented. I don't think I have a supplementary on that. On question 6.
Can I just add, obviously, for the record, that as promised to yourself, I have personally visited the area and met councillors there, representative, and obviously in Lincoln would arrange to do that. I recognise there is a challenge with that particular roundabout, and I am open to work with all local representatives from county council and district council about finding some improvements. But it is very much on my radar.
Thank you very much indeed. My final question was question 6, which was about ensuring timetable information is made available to residents who don't use the internet. And the answer talks about reinstating 3,000 bus stops. I'm not quite sure what that means, but reinstating bus maps. The question, I think, is about timetables. Timetables are frequently changing and they are irregular. You can no longer say the bus leaves from this stop at 10 past the hour. They come at any strange random times, scheduled random times, but random nonetheless. So how do we transmit information and share information about bus times, not just routes, with people who don't use the internet?
Can I obviously take that comment, and I think back to the bus team within the organisation, but ironically, I think it's a question that's almost becoming, and I hope this is the case, not irrelevant, but we are changing the way we look at how we provide, particularly bus networks, with the development of the, excuse my pun here, the ting thing, in terms of demand responsive transport, particularly for those areas in rural areas who are currently feeling that they have been left out. By actually looking at how public transport is provided, and we can talk about the kind of Uber model for buses, the idea of regularity. There is definitely a place for regularity in some situations, but we need to be innovative and also look at other options that make transport work for everyone across all areas. But I would definitely take back the importance and how we would work to ensure that if indeed through the BSIP we take on more responsibility for not just for running the buses, but how we tell people to run buses. And that will be very much also be inclusive. We need to think about visual impairment. We need to think about hearing impairment. We have to think about, is that for children? Is it for the elderly? And for those people who are digitally not as linked in as possible, we have to be inclusive of all groups to make sure that the bus, which is the Clapham omnibus, the public transport that even now provides more support in terms of choice around the whole of the United Kingdom, is something that is meaningful in Cambridge and Peterborough.
Thank you for that. The next 3 questions were submitted by Councillor Goldsack.
Do you want me to pick those up?
Is not here. Councillor van der Weyer asked whether he could put in a supplementary question to question 9. But if you wish to, Councillor Davey, as our CAM rapporteur, then
I'm
yes.
more than happy to, Lorna. I thought because the questions had come to me from Mark, it might have been easier. As you say, I think 7 and 8 are answered in the questions that were supplied by Mark in the paper that you gave. But I think question 9 was, I see that some bits were maybe answered, most of it hasn't been. And I think it's particularly, around Mark would probably want me to ask more about the alternatives to the CAM, which I think have been omitted from the answer that you gave. Is that okay?
Well, brace yourself. Yeah. So I have got a response, and I appreciate if it wasn't a clear enough answer in the first. So that's what the consultation's about as well. But there are a number of options to be developed. One CAM, I recognise it was seen, and just for the record, I recognise that one CAM was a potential incredible sort of feat of engineering, but it was not something that I felt would deliver efficiently, effectively for the whole of Cambridge and Peterborough. So we need now to focus not just on Cambridge and South Cambridgeshire. We have to think of the whole of the area, a combined authority area of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. And we need to support the collaboration with the GCP to help them progress their city access and connectivity proposals. Going back to Councillor Bajan's point about cooperation, it is telling that the GCP, in putting together some of the papers they put into the public domain, they are deliberately extending away from just the area that they represent, particularly around improved connectivity. This is what cooperation does. This is what working together. So just want to acknowledge again, by working together, you get a lot more done. We need to particularly develop solutions in the northern part of the region. And yes, there will be a paper going to the in November to the board in particular relation to Wisbech Rail and the need to consider their Revolution Very Light Rail as a solution that prepares meaningful connectivity for Wisbech residents as a branch line to the rail network and beyond, and then drive Network Rail and the Department of Transport in relation to the actual point we talked about there, the Ely area capacity enhancement. That will ensure, as I believe, proper connectivity, improved connectivity for those in the north, the forgotten about market towns, to those areas in the south. And that, in combination with the continued improvements to those trains stopping at Whittlesea, March and Mainy and improving their frequency, will be part of the solution.
Thank you. And Councillor van der Waal.
Thank you. That is very helpful, thank you. I mean, the CAM was really designed to as a solution to a very specific problem, which is the transport system in and around Cambridge, the congested rail routes, the constraint centre, and the major employment sites being on the periphery. And the CAM was solving the problem that if you want to have a public transport alternative to the car, that needs many hundreds of buses through the centre of Cambridge. I mean, Cambridge Connect and Smarter Cambridge Transport reckon up to 400 buses through the centre of Cambridge per hour, which is I mean, not really feasible and be very damaging. So that's what CAM was, the problem CAM was addressing. The GCP is working on this. As you mentioned, but the role of the combined authority is going to be absolutely vital, and in particular the role of the local transport plan. I mean, so supplementary is the local transport plan going to be exploring these alternative ways of solving the specific problem about peak time congestion in and around Cambridge?
Well, the answer to that is yes. You know, I have seen the local transport connectivity plan, and it's impressive, and it specifically those factors that you said, Councillor van der Waal, are addressed, and also again asking the community, where do you see, you know, what is the important things in solving that challenge? So yes, they are there. Yeah, are we in agreement? Yeah, we are. And the transport guy, yeah, Mehmet says yes as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Davey, the next three questions are also all yours, I think. So
the last one was a joint one with Mark, but 10 certainly. I welcome the response to your answer. I suppose what I'd like to know is a bit more about how the interlinked relationship will be between the Climate Change Commission and the decisions that are made in relation to one CAM. So it's about the relationship between the two of them.
I thought I got away with it, and that was tripping up on this one. Say again, sorry, Councillor.
I think I quite fully understand that your point about the question obviously about tackling climate change. Therefore, it's about your relationship between the Independent Climate Change Commission and the recommendations you'll be making around one CAM. Will it go back to them for scrutiny, or will it just come straight forward to here, Nick?
So the Climate Commission and their recommendations are actually at the bedrock of putting to, in consultation with the soft launch and for the public, but absolutely front and foremost. I would also add, there is also a document document that has been commissioned through the combined authority again previously before I started, which is to, you know, a 20-point recommendation to putting health at the heart of every decision. They're a bit distraction, but I can't say it enough. 31 recommendations agreed by a board on a vote, and they are the absolute focus for the term of office where I am the mayor, to make sure that where we have a statutory responsibility in terms of transport, it delivers against those recommendations. Hopefully that answers your question.
The next one, thank you, Chair. Question 11, you've responded, but the question was, how will you engage with communities? And it's, I suppose, just about, if it would be more detailed, that again would be welcome.
But do you want to, I mean, I know there's got the website, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so so obviously we've got our workshop with leaders and members. In terms of the public, we will have a website which will be launched. There will be associated information if required, you know, in terms of sending that information out to people, in terms of questionnaires and all sorts of stuff in terms of paperwork if required. But yeah, I guess we've got a long 4 weeks in terms of doing a lot of engagement, because obviously we want to make sure that come January that we have we're in a good position to actually start putting some things out in the public that we can consult on.
Thank you. Can I come back again? Is that allowed? I think we're in the middle of the local plan, as you know, the local plan consultations, a whole range of consultations going on. I suppose the offer is, if there's things that you want from the City Council or South Cambs, particularly to those most disengaged communities, please don't hesitate to ask.
Yeah.
Because I think websites are unlikely to deliver what you might want. And it often goes back to Nick's point earlier about compassion.
Yeah.
If you're seeking to affect and enhance the communications with those most disengaged, who want to be able to be most likely to use OneCam and other public transport, then please use us if it helps.
I appreciate that, and I'll put it on record that I think I have, you know, that I have gone out there to parish councils, I have gone out to community groups, and I've made myself visible as the kind of the mayor of the combined authority, and I would very much expect myself to be doing that as part of this consultation. And where I can and I've got the time, I will go along, and I will go to the places where maybe what's being discussed in terms of an LTCP are not always welcomed. Now that is the job. I don't want to go to easy meetings necessarily. I will take that challenge and, you know, and try and represent the ambition of the combined authority and its board at all those groups. And if they are examples that you particularly want me to come to, I think it's important that I say that I'm visible doing it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Miscandlin, you seem to be wanting to raise something urgently. Can you advise us?
It's reading the report, and some of it's quite comprehensive, that there is actually no mention whatsoever of the A605, which is a major stumbling block for investment within Fenland. There is nothing there. And the only mention of Whittlesea is a one-liner saying that the station's being revisited.
Councillor Miscandlin, I'm not sure that we're on this item
This
anymore. We're on
to-
the question
to do
and
with
answers.
transport.
We're on the question. Yeah. Councillor Miscandlin, we're on the questions and answers that were previously submitted, and I don't think that's a supplementary to this one. Okay, thank you.
I'm happy to come back. A commitment to Councillor. I have visited many times and recognise the importance of connecting and enhancing opportunities for affordable and regular public transport throughout Fenland. I'm aware of, you know, with the challenges around Whittlesea rail station. I'm very much aware of challenges in terms of how both freight, agricultural movements, and the public move around your area. And it's something that I work closely with Councillor Bowden with, and it will continue. If it isn't represented enough, and if there's any specifics that you want to raise, please feel free to contact me, and I will ask my team to respond directly to your specific areas. But there is going to be an absolute focus on delivering a transport connectivity, both digital and, you know, the physical infrastructure for all. Nobody will be forgotten about, and that in essence was one of my biggest concerns about the proposals that were made around one CAM, because there were people, like you articulated, being forgotten about, and I have no intention of forgetting you.
Okay, thank you.
I-
Can we
I've
maintain
been
order,
to witness it
please?
many times, and I enjoy it very much.
Right, thank you. Councillor David, did you have any supplementary on your last question?
I think the mayor answered that question, or the supplementary in relation to number 9, which is about the wider engagement. So I won't ask it.
Thank you. Now, I'm very conscious of time, but Councillor Hay submitted some questions which she believed were not picked up. Can I ask you very briefly to go through those, because I'm very conscious of time?
Yes, at the end of August, I did send an email through to, well, it went eventually to Roland Potter, and he did give me replies to 4 questions that I asked. On the second question, I asked, as far as the bus review is concerned, what has already been put in place. Now, he mentions the 905 Camburn to Science Park, Cambridge, the X2 Camburn to Addenbrooke's, Peterborough Orbital Services, V2 service, and West Huntingdon Demand Responsive Transit. Considering it's now nearly 2 months since this reply came through, I'd just like an update on, do we know what uptake on these services we've had, bearing in mind that since then we've had a lessening of restrictions due to COVID?
To give you a full answer, I would need to kind of obviously refer back, but as my understanding, because I have particular oversight in regard to the 905 as a previous St Neots East District Councillor, I've taken a particular interest in that, knowing also my children use the service. As I understand it, there has been considerable, as it has been used more and more, but I think you deserve a more accurate answer than that. But my sense is, and also watching the bus on a regular basis, more people are using it. But that doesn't mean to say that I'm necessarily happy with the 905 level of precision. For the record, I'm still pushing for the course of time to get the full X5 and more direct services between St Neots and Cambridge in a more timely manner to what it was previously. But that's an ongoing piece of work. Some very positive conversations with the particular provider in that area, that is both Stagecoach and Whippet. And as I say, there is improvement in terms of usage, but you deserve a more fulsome answer.
Yep, thank you. If you could come back to us.
Can I just come back? Thank you very much for that. I'm particularly interested in the V2 because obviously it affects Chatteris, which is my ward. And I was originally told this was going to be a 6 months trial. So I just want to ensure that that is going to carry on going forward.
But can we take that back and come back to
I'm
that?
happy to take that
That'd be
back.
good. Okay, thank you.
That'll be for
Right. Okay, so we have had our report and questions on that. We have had the supplementaries on the questions we submitted earlier. Is there anything as a result of this that we wish to add to our work programme, the members think? Not at the moment. Right, okay. Thank you very much indeed, Mehmet. Thank you, Mayor. We look forward to seeing you
Well, the
next month.
timing's okay. Did I talk too much? Is that my problem? Everybody says I do it.
I had hoped
more
that we would be
concise
able
answers
to
next time.
answer, but no, that's fine. Thank you very much indeed. A pleasure
To
to see you.
apologise. I'm sorry if I've delayed you getting on for your busy work elsewhere, but thank you for your kindness.
Okay, thank you enormously. Right, okay, moving on then to item 6 on our agenda, which is the confirmation of lead member appointments. We're asked to confirm the appointments of our lead members, which we made some months ago, and discuss what to do with the arrangements for lead members for CAM and bus reform. So I'm hoping that this won't detain us long. I'm happy that we agree the recommendations. Can I ask what the view of the meeting is on the lead members initially, which is the first recommendation? Are we content with that? To reappoint those members? Yep. And secondly, what do members wish to do about the situation regarding CAM and the buses, where we did have task and finish groups, but they are currently no more, and we have no CAM, and we have no currently bus review working group. What do you want to do with those positions of the people who previously chairing those groups? Councillor Hay and then Councillor
Can I
Daly.
suggest, as far as the buses, that myself and Councillor Davey together go forward with the buses, because obviously a lot of the bus reform work is going to replace the CAM, which Councillor Davey is familiar with.
Okay, thank you. Is that acceptable to the meeting? Good, good. Councillor Davey.
Relating to one CAM, I think if we just put that in abeyance until something comes forward from the mayor as to proposals, and I suspect working with Anne will help enormously if it's as expected around buses.
Okay, so we could give you a sort of retained rapporteur role in keeping an eye on anything to do with CAM replacements and buses.
If that's acceptable to the committee.
Is that acceptable to the committee? Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. We made suitably short work of that. Over in Scrutiny.
Great, Chair.
Is that on? Sorry.
Sorry, can we confirm the names for the lead members for the housing, skills, transport committees, and just get confirmation in regards to the conflict of interest point within the report, that there is no conflict of interest for those members in regards to any other committees they may sit on?
Right. So the names are as in 2.1, and the conflict of interest protocol we're receiving in December. Yeah.
So Chair, just to interject there, sorry. So in relation to chapter 13 of the Constitution, 5.2 says that no member of the committee may scrutinise a decision whether or not implemented in which they are directly involved as a member of the decision-making body which made that decision. If I also refer members to the role profile for the lead members, there's a clear responsibility to scrutinise decisions. So if there will be a conflict of interest with any of the executive committees that members may sit on outside of their role as a member of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, it has to be declared, and it would be advised that those members not occupy position as lead member purely because there's a risk of a conflict of interest. So this is why it's pertinent that we establish whether or not there are conflicts of interest, and if there are, my advice would be that those members should not be in the lead member position whereby there's a direct responsibility for scrutinising decisions.
Decisions in which they have taken part.
Directly, yes.
Yes.
directly.
Yes.
Right,
Directly,
okay,
yes.
so I'm seeing a flurry of hands at the moment. So I'm going to take Councillor van der Weyer, Councillor Atkins, then Councillor Bagent.
I would say we should stick with the wording in the Constitution rather than wording in the report, which is different. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Councillor Atkins.
Yes, I agree with the suggestion of Councillor van der Weyer. I would suggest that in the report that we're given, I'm not convinced that paragraphs 2.9 and 2.10 are a particularly accurate interpretation of the Constitution as it relates to scrutiny decisions. And I would suggest that that be reviewed quite carefully ahead of a more full conflict of interest discussion that I think we're due to have in December. I think in the meantime, I would be supportive of, provided any even theoretical conflicts of interest are declared at this meeting, I'd be happy to support members taking on lead member roles, even where there might be some perception that they have some role in their constituent authority, at least until the December meeting. As Councillor van der Weyer alluded, my understanding is this is a scrutinising body, not a decision-making body. They should declare conflicts of interest if they're involved in the decision-making. But if the decision-making is at the combined authority board level, if they're not sat on the board, I don't see how their role in some other council is implicated in that, or if it is, it's sufficiently weak that I think it could just be noted and should not bar them from taking on that role.
Thank you, Councillor Bagent.
I think you said it exactly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we have a report coming to us in December. In the meantime, we have a list of names. I am happy to propose that we accept that list of names. And in the meantime, if there is any reason why it is viewed that any of those names is unsuitable for that position, I think it is up to the combined authority to come back to us and evidence that point before we have the discussion in December on that basis, are members happy to approve the list of names at A and to agree the arrangements made with councillors Davey and Hay under B? Yep, okay, thank you very much indeed. Item 8 then, trading committees. No, we're not, we're on item 7. Overview and scrutiny arrangements. There's an update, the action log and the information sharing protocol. So Anne, is there anything you wanted to add or introduce to us?
I think the only thing in addition, so the committee were asked to approve the information sharing protocol at Appendix 2 and to note the action log and to note the feedback from the Combined Authority Board. They received the Centre for Governance and Scrutiny report and recommendations at their meeting on the 29th of September, and the feedback from that is detailed in the report.
Thank you very much. Members? Councillor Atkins.
Thank you, Chair. I had some concerns about the information sharing agreement, in particular the suggested timings and how that's going to work in practice. I'm happy that we accept the protocol as proposed today, because I think it's important that we have some basis for our access to information. But I do wonder if officers could review, in particular, the 7-day commitment, which is in any case, I think in brackets it says where possible. So therefore, I wonder, first of all, whether there is any possibility of reducing that 7 days, indeed, where possible, and whether we can distinguish more comprehensively different types of information request and come up with more suitable arrangements. So in particular, I think early access to board papers, I think, would be a sufficiently substantial and very common request that we're going to make a lot. And if we can have a more detailed and perhaps a more sensible protocol in response to that, that's something I would welcome coming back to this committee at a future date. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? I've got a couple of points regarding the feedback from the board, which I'd like to raise. The first one was that the board approved an amendment to the report when we took the scrutiny arrangements to the board at last month's meeting in this room. They noted the importance of our scrutinising mayoral decision notices. And I'm concerned, I mean, I fully accept that, but I'm concerned that the mechanisms for publicising and informing us of mayoral decision notices when they are issued are at very best completely opaque. So I think I would like to take back to officers and get some written clarity back to this committee on the publicising and notification of mayoral decision notices. I looked at the website of the Combined Authority, where hidden away there is a page on mayoral decision notices. The last entry was February, and I'm not convinced that is the most recent mayoral decision notice that has been issued. So I think if we are to do what the board believes is important for us to do, we actually need to tighten up the mechanisms by which we are advised of mayoral decision notices and they are publicised. So do you want an update on that at your next meeting? Just briefly, just for information. Okay, thank you. And secondly, the board wanted us to review the fundamental commitments on which the Combined Authority was founded. I'm happy to take away and act as a rapporteur on those Devo deal commitments. And I'm happy to produce a paper for the next meeting, one of our templates, to kick off that piece of work. There will be an update going to the board in January on those Devo deal commitments. So if I circulate that paper and we approve it in November, then I can hopefully bring back some more information to you in December on the basis of that work. Are you happy for that to happen? Thank you. And the third question or issue was 2.7. The feedback from the board said that overview and scrutiny should be supported to examine key policy issues, which I like very much, and I would very much like to know from the board what support they are prepared to give us in addition to the support we already receive. So I will take that away. And we might want to consider that question when we come to provide our feedback to the board, which they've requested that we provide and is in the work programme. People happy with that? Yeah, okay. So are we content with the paper then as it stands at the moment, bearing in mind that Councillor Atkins' points about the information sharing protocol? Yeah, happy to agree, good. Okay, item 8 is overview and scrutiny terms of reference for scrutinising the trading companies. And this is Robert's paper. So Robert, is there anything you would like to draw to our attention?
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair and members. The report we've received provides committee with the draft terms of reference in relation to committee's role in scrutinising the combined authorities trading companies. You'll see the report outlines the committee's powers and also highlights the 6 trading companies registered with Companies House and their dates of incorporation and functions. Now, decisions relating to the combined authority trading companies do go to the combined authority board. The board acts as a shareholder for some of the companies, or most of the companies actually. The only one where it's not is Angle Holdings. In this role, the board carries out a range of roles around oversight and review, and arrangements are all in place in shareholder agreements for reserved matters to be considered by the combined authority board rather than matters that the companies themselves can undertake. The Audit and Governance Committee considered the potential terms of reference for that body in relation to trading companies, and it was agreed at that meeting back in September to provide a supplementary paper to their next meeting in November, which will highlight the individual matters reserved for decision by the combined authority board for each of these companies. So that's considered to be of use to this committee as well. A link will be provided once the audit and governance papers are published in November. So given the process of decision making, the Overview and Scrutiny Committee is invited to consider the proposed terms of reference today, which it is hoped will bring alongside the other statutory committee, namely Audit and Governance, a robust and independent approach to the trading companies. So the draft proposed terms of reference should also enable the committee to exercise its powers in relation to the authority's decision making, bringing an appropriate level of scrutiny without fear of commercial confidentiality being breached. It is important at this stage to highlight that the individual trading companies are not directly accountable to the committee. So the report also contains 2 high-profile failings in relation to local authority trading companies in recent times, and these are highlighted mainly for information for the committee as they could potentially have relevance moving forward. So the terms of reference in relation to the review and assessment of the combined authorities trading companies are presented as per the paper, but it is proposed to revise C to review any matter within the committee's power pertaining to the combined authorities trading companies, including the performance of these companies. So, over to you, members.
Thank you very much indeed. Members, anything you would like to raise on this item and the suggested terms of reference? Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome the amendment that's been proposed because I think my fear was in the original paper, it felt more about a review of governance rather than what the companies actually do. So I think if it's possible, a further slight amendment, or I think the bit of performance and proposed activities might be helpful because that then does allow us to scrutinise what they're up to, if that makes sense. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Is there any issue with adding that in legal or other terms? No? Are we content to make that? Oh, Rochelle.
Small matter of clarification, Chair. Is the committee minded to retain A, recommendation A?
That was. governance. I'm sorry, I've not got my microphone on. Are we happy to consider deleting A, as this might stray into audit and governance territory?
Thank you, Chair. Can I just confirm, Rochelle, that is in audit and governance terms of reference then?
Bear with me, I'll
Because
check.
I do agree that
We don't want to
feels
leave a
me
hole.
but I don't want to delete both if then nobody's looking at that.
If I just clarify, the audit and governance did receive the proposed terms of reference in September. They did back some of them back.
Okay.
So that a
Oh, right.
revised T of R is going to audit and governance at their 26th of November meeting.
Okay.
There will be something very similar to that will be in, it was around wording. They didn't like the word ensure and things like that. So
Yes, okay.
Right.
Chair, so
Yes.
I propose that we take it back, that the recommended A should be factored into the revised terms of reference for the Audit and Governance
Yeah,
Committee.
that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
So, I mean, I've looked at our terms of reference that went to audit and governance, and the wording is fairly similar. It's been slightly scrutinised up, but yeah, it's certainly in the audit and governance T of R.
Thank you
So,
both. Thank you.
so we are confident that if we strike that out, it is on the basis that audit and governance is picking that up. Yeah, okay, so are we happy on that basis to delete A, amend C, and agree the terms of reference as proposed? Yes? Brilliant, thank you very much indeed, members, that's great. On to item 9 then, which is topics for members' question time. So we have a paper here from Anne. Anne, did you want to add anything to this?
Thank you, Chair. So the committee received and agreed the format of the Mayor's question time at their meeting last month, and it stated the committee would agree topics at the meeting this month for what would be covered at the Mayor's question time, which is going to be held on the 22nd of November. Committee members were emailed to see if they had any topics that they'd like to put forward, and I received 3 areas, which was affordable housing, local transport strategy, and the Mayor's priorities. The committee are asked to discuss if they would like to choose one topic or a couple of topics to have the Mayor answer questions on at his meeting. Just to give you an idea of timelines, the deadline for submitting questions for the Mayor's question time is the 5th of November at 12 p.m, which is next Friday.
Thank you very much indeed, Anne. Members, Councillor van der Weyer.
Is that for submitting them to you to then? So we need to get a question to you by that time?
Yes, so questions will be submitted to me by 12 p.m. next Friday. Yes,
Friday week.
Yes, Friday week.
Yeah, okay, thank you. The suggestion is made in the paper that it might be prudent to avoid transport-related questions as we have spent quite a lot of time on that this morning, and I think that was quite useful. So if we're talking about the 2 remaining priorities as being affordable, 2 remaining suggested topics as being affordable housing and Mayor's priorities, are we happy that we formulate and submit questions related to those 2 areas, the second of which is after all quite broad? Yeah, okay. So in order to manage that in practical terms, would you like myself and the Vice Chair to do the kind of question wrangling job that Councillors Davy, Hay and Bagent did last time in relation to that if you submit them to us with copies to the officers, then we can have a conversation backstairs and put them into some sort of shape? Yes? And I'm proposing at the next meeting to use the same format that we had today, that we don't have read out the question, read out the answer, but that everybody who has submitted a question has a chance to ask one supplementary on that question. Did that work for people this morning as a reasonable way of managing the process? Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, the only point is about the supplementary. If 2 people ask a similar question, then some way of ensuring that they get supplementaries. Or
I think we need to keep track of who's asked what question, and if there are similar or identical questions, then we can do that wrangling behind the scenes before the meeting so that we know what we're doing at the meeting. I think we've learned that a bit from experience today, and of course need to cover for absences as well. Councillor Sharp.
Just one point, it's touching on what Councillor van der Waal just said. It's obviously two people put similar questions in. The supplementary from those two people may be different. Therefore, I think we may need to allow both of them to put supplementaries in. Certainly my opinion, I don't know how the others feel.
That seems not unreasonable. Okay, are we content with what we've done on that then? Okay, thank you. Item 10, the Combined Authorities Forward Plan. This is a chance for, goodness me. This is a chance for our lead members and rapporteurs to pick up anything in the Combined Authorities Forward Plan that they would wish to draw to our attention. Does any member who is a lead member or rapporteur have anything in the forward plan that they think they need to draw to our attention, potentially for our work programme or for their ongoing inquiries? No? Okay. So we've received that then. So the next item, item 11, is our own work programme. Is there anything that people would wish to comment on or add to that? I think my thoughts were doing something on the devolution deal, as I said, so that we could have a scoping document to November and something from me as an update in December before that goes to board in January. Otherwise, are we comfortable with the work programme for the time being? Councillor Atkins, then Councillor Davey.
Just to say, I'm still establishing the exact timelines that the Combined Authority is hoping to pursue in terms of the environment and climate change. Obviously, we've only just had the Independent Commission on Climate Change launch their final report last week. So I may well have some suggestions for work plan in between now and our next meeting. So if members are happy with that, I'll submit those to the chair and we can consider those at the next meeting.
That seems fine to me. Thank you very much indeed for that. Councillor Davey.
I wonder if we should maybe have something on relating to skills and post the pandemic, or not post if the pandemic is post, but do you know what I mean? Something around how the mayor's work in the area of skills is relating to how we emerge from the pandemic. And I know they have been heavily involved in the past, but I think it'd be quite useful to have something on that area.
Do we want to consider that for February?
Yeah.
We have the mayor's question time next month. We have a number of issues, including the budget and climate change in December. We have the budget and the mayor again in January. So February looks as if it's the first opportunity to do something in depth. If we could ask for the chair and the appropriate officer, who I think would be probably John T. Hill, wouldn't it, to join us in February, that would be super helpful.
May I ask a point of clarity? I think it might be for Rochelle, actually, please, if it's for after. I sit on the skills committee. Is that a conflict with this committee?
A conflict in terms of.
Well, if I'm on the skills committee, can I then scrutinise what the skills committee?
You're on the skills committee of the
CPCA.
Of the CPCA. Right. Okay.
That is a conflict.
That to me is a clear
conflict.
Yes. Yes, because we've had the same issue, for example, with the chair of the fire authority, who is a non-voting member of the board, but was on this committee and therefore had to be replaced because she was a non-voting member of the board. And I think there would be a clear interest on that. And I think you need to decide what you're doing on that and come back to us. Yeah, thank you.
Lorna.
Yeah, sorry, Councillor Miscan.
Bringing the skills before skills committees, decisions and forward planning, it would be interesting to know what questions other members have in formulating questions to Andy Coles and myself what is the CPCA doing to improve the apprenticeships and that within the whole of Cambridgeshire, because that's very important for projecting the skills of the future residents.
Yep, I mean, I think once we have got these programmed in, then I think we've now got a format that we've used this morning, which with suitable variation we can, you know, and trial and error we can use as the basis for how we do that. So I'm sure at the appropriate time we will be asking people to submit their questions to Councillor Coles and yourself for that in February. Yes, yeah, good. Okay, are we comfortable with the work programme then on that basis, including skills in February and something in November, a template in November on devolution deal commitments, and something from me in December on that? Yeah.
Yeah, Chair, just as we have the scoping document included in this report for the accommodation strategy, just for
Yes.
members to agree if they're happy to have that.
That's right. I drafted a scoping report for the accommodation strategy for the combined authority, which Councillor Goldsack agreed to take up. He's not with us here today, but he did tell me when we met recently in a muddy field at Welch's Dam that he was very happy for with that scoping document. So I'd like your approval for us to move forward with that and to authorise Councillor Goldsack to go away and do that. I had a discussion along with you, I think, Councillor Sharp, with the incoming, the new chief executive, in which I drew her attention to the fact that we had done this. So I will forward also that document to her so that Councillor Goldsack can engage in conversations with her and whoever appropriate to do that piece of work. Yep. I think we're done on that then. So combined authority agenda is the next item for Wednesday's meeting. Now we are entitled to ask questions if we wish on any items on this agenda. I'm told that that currently requires me to drive to Peterborough in order to do so. I'm hoping that we can address that, and I would like officers to take away and clarify whether there's anything that can be done to address that situation, perhaps as part of the governance review. Councillor Atkins, in the meantime.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to draw members' attention to some of the items on the agenda on Wednesday. There's a lot in the climate change and environment sphere. If I was to suggest one thing to look at, it would be the action plan for the combined authorities operations as part of the net zero item. It's on page 77 of the combined authorities agenda pack. I think that is worth some consideration. Essentially, we heard from the Mayor earlier. It's clearly a big priority of his, the 30 recommendations, or 31, 33 recommendations that have already been agreed on work to tackle climate change. This action plan translates those recommendations into actions that the combined authority is looking to undertake, along with some proposed costings and some further comments. I have a concern about the staffing levels to deliver this, and perhaps if we can establish, if it's plausible for the chair to ask a question without travelling, it might be worth investigating that. It probably doesn't merit particularly a car journey to ask an environment question just on its own merits. So I would urge members to look at that action plan. At some point, I imagine it will be expanded because the independent commission has now finally reported, and I think there are now about 60 overarching recommendations. So I expect in due course this action plan will get a lot longer and a lot more substantial. I would suggest that it may well be an appropriate framework that we can use to scrutinise the actions that the combined authority is taking. So hopefully we can have something pretty substantial in December that will build off this template. But in the meantime, worth a few moments of your time to look at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Atkins. Any other observations on this? As I have said to members beforehand, if you really want me to drive to Peterborough to ask one question about resourcing of the action plan, then I'm totally prepared to do that. If there is a way to raise that question by other means or at other times and not to do that, I am equally content. So I'm in your hands on that one. Councillor van der Waal.
another means of raising this with the combined authority would be much better, I think, from all round, especially given the topic.
Okay, thank you. Are we done on that item then? Okay, thank you very much indeed, everyone. So the next item is the date of the next meeting, and that will be the first of the Mayor's Question Times. That will be on Monday, the 22nd of November at 10 AM at St Martin House at Peterborough City Council. So I look forward to seeing as many of you as possible. Then Councillor Miss Scanlon.
Thank you. The last time we were at San Martin House, we had the deplorable situation where people were taking pallet trucks through the end of the store, walking through, totally disrupting me. Can we ensure that that doesn't happen next time? Because it was very, very distracting.
I'm aware that there was a certain amount of disruption. I think we do have to recognise that the layout of that building means that it is a working building, but I'm sure the message will go out to seek to minimise any such disruption, if not eliminate it completely during our deliberations. Councillor Atkins.
Will members be provided with suitable materials that we can use to publicise this Mayor's Question Time? In particular, I mean, I know this is the one where we're asking questions, not the public, but it would be good to have public awareness and public engagement in the event. So will members of this committee be provided with suitable materials for that purpose?
Does anyone have an answer for that?
It's something that we can take back to the comms team. Is there anything specific that you are suggesting that is put in place?
It would be very helpful if there's it'd be helpful for us to have sight of press releases that we can also share. If anything, social media ready can be produced that we can share on our social media networks. And that would also, I'm not looking for anything above and beyond, but I just want to make sure that what would usually be done for something like this will be done and that it will be shared with members. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we'll take that back and ask whether that can be provided to us. Okay, I don't think there's anything further that we need to do. So thank you all very much indeed for your attendance today. Thank you, officers, for your support and assistance, and I look forward to seeing you in a month's time.